A man is about to walk out on his wife and his little boy in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. He'll be gone for 63 years. And the strangest part, he's not running from a bad life, he's running from a good one. Now, before I tell you why, you need to know what kind of story this is, because it's not really about one man leaving home. It's about a soul. Not a person, a soul. The thing that was alive before you were born and will still be here after you die. And it's stuck. Because every time it dies, it just gets born again. New body, new name, new life. And every single time, it forgets everything. Every lesson, every mistake, every person it ever loved, gone. Then it starts over and dies again and gets born again. Thousands of times. In the old Hindu and Buddhist texts, this endless cycle of dying and being reborn has a name. They call it samsara, and escaping it, breaking free of the whole cycle, has a name too, Moksh. But almost nobody escapes. Almost nobody even remembers their past lives. That's the trap. This soul is about to become the exception. Because this one starts to remember. Every past life, every death, every lesson it was supposed to learn, and didn't. And that's the question this whole series is built on. If you could remember all of it, would that finally set you free? Or would you just carry every old wound into every new life? This is Book 1. It follows that soul through a lifetime as a man, and later into forms far stranger than human. But it starts here, with a farmer who has everything and still can't stop asking one question. This is Moksh, Chapter 1, the first Renunciation. Our story begins a very long time ago, in a small farming village in ancient India, and it begins with a man named Vasu. Simple life. He farms, he trades at the market, he raises his son. The same life his father lived and his father before that. Nothing's wrong, and that's exactly the problem. The story opens on a bad night. His little boy, Dhruva, has been burning up with fever for 3 days, and just before sunrise it finally breaks. Vasu touches his forehead, feels it's cool again, and the boy's eyes open. "Dad, I'm here." He should feel relief. Any parent would. But instead there's this empty feeling in his chest he can't explain. And when the boy asks him, "Will you stay with me today?" Vasu says, "Always." He already knows he's lying. 3 months go by, and that empty feeling, it's getting worse. He's still farming, still trading, still going through the motions of his whole life. But one question is running in the back of his mind on a loop, and he can't shut it off. Is this really it? Is this all there is? Now here's the thing about Vasu. He thinks he's hiding it. He's not. His wife, Rohini, figures it out before he says a single word. One evening she's grinding spices. She stops, looks right at him, and says it, not a question, a fact. "You're leaving us." He tries to play dumb. "What are you talking about?" And she says, "Your body's here, but you left weeks ago." And then she says something that tells you she's known this man a long time. She says, "I married a seeker. I always knew this day would come." She's not even surprised, and that's what really hurts. So word gets around, and the village elder pulls Vasu aside, takes him for a walk to this old tree at the center of the village and lays it out straight. He says, "My grandfather found his answers right here. His grandfather too. What makes you so sure yours are somewhere else?" And Vasu asks him back, "What if staying here means I die inside?" The old man doesn't flinch. He says, "Then you'll waste your whole life chasing something that might not even exist, and you'll destroy your family's happiness for a chance at your own. That's the trade. Only you can decide if it's worth it." And that night, this is where everything changes. Vasu can't sleep, so he sits down to meditate. just trying to quiet his head. And the room disappears. Suddenly he's not in his home anymore. He's in a cave, cold, pitch dark, stone walls squeezing in on him, and this isn't a daydream. He can feel the rock under his hands. He can smell the dirt. But he's not himself. He's older, thinner, wearing the robes of a hermit. And he's dying. Falling rocks have crushed his legs. He's trapped. Every breath hurts, but the breaths keep coming, one after another, keeping him alive in a body that's already failing. And he just has to lie there and wait. Until finally, the last breath leaves him. But he doesn't die into nothing. The vision keeps going, and he feels himself being born again. New body, new time, a completely different life. And that's when he understands what he's being shown. That wasn't a stranger dying in that cave. That was him, a version of him from a life he lived long before this one. And when he died in there, he just came back, as Vasu. He snaps out of it, gasping, tears running down his face. Rohini is shaking him awake. What did you see? And he says, I've lived before. Rohini, I've died before, and I'm going to do it again. We all are, over and over forever, and we never remember any of it. And that's the moment he stops being just a husband, just a father. In his own mind, he's now a soul that's lived 1,000 lives, and the need to understand that is bigger than anything. Bigger, even, than his love for the two people sleeping in that house. So he makes his choice. Before dawn, he packs the little he owns, and he stands over his sleeping family one last time. His son's flat on his back, arms thrown wide. His wife's curled around the boy, protecting him even in her sleep. He leans down, kisses his son's forehead, and whispers, "Forgive me, I can't stay, and I can't explain it in a way you'd ever accept." And he walks out into the dark. And the whole village just sleeps. Nobody wakes up, nobody stops him. By morning, he's already gone. This is what the old traditions call renunciation, giving up everything you own and everyone you love to go searching for something higher. It's supposed to be a holy act, but standing on that dark road, leaving his little boy behind, it doesn't feel holy to Vasu. It feels like the worst thing he's ever done. And the guilt nearly kills him. For months he's wandering with no destination, and every single sunset he's picturing it. Rohini waking up to an empty space beside her. His son crying out for a dad who isn't coming. But under the guilt, there's this certainty he can't shake. He saw it with his own eyes. He lived and died as someone else. So he knows without a doubt that this one life isn't all there is, and that's what keeps him walking. Eventually, he reaches Varanasi, the holy city, and there, a pilgrim tells him about a master living deep in the Himalayas, a man who's supposedly beaten death itself. But there's a catch. This master only takes students who want the truth so badly that nothing else matters to them anymore. So Vasu goes, 43 days through brutal mountains, and finally he climbs over a ridge, and there it is. A few huts by a stream in a valley that just feels peaceful. The master's younger than he expected, and this guy sees straight through him. First words out of his mouth, "You feel guilty, that's obvious, but you're also genuinely searching, so which one's stronger?" Vasu says, "I honestly don't know." And the master smiles and says, "Good, at least you're not lying to yourself, follow me." And here's where the master starts taking Vasu apart. Piece by piece, he strips away everything Vasu thought he was. Husband gone, father gone, villager gone, until there's nothing left but the part of him that's just aware, watching, with no labels on it, no story. Then one day, a Buddhist monk shows up, and this monk carries so much peace with him that even Vasu's own master steps aside and asks him to teach. And the monk says this, "We suffer because we hold on to things that don't last, but there's a way out of it." Vasu goes straight to him, "Will you teach me?" And the monk says, "I leave tomorrow for the mountains up north. Come with me, if you're willing to sleep in caves instead of a comfortable ashram." Vasu doesn't hesitate, he goes. And the next 5 years change him completely. He and the monk own nothing. They eat only what strangers give them. They sleep wherever the night drops them. And the monk teaches him slowly. "Watch your breath," he says. "See how it moves all on its own without you telling it to. That's your first lesson in letting go." And at one point the monk finally frees him from the thing that's been eating him alive. He looks at Vasu and says, "Your family still haunts you, but be honest with yourself. If you'd stayed, starving inside the way you were, what kind of father would you have actually been? Bitter, angry. You might have ruined that boy's whole childhood without meaning to." And it works. For the first time in years, the guilt isn't crushing him. Then in the 4th year, he goes into a cave for a long retreat, and he sits, completely still, for 7 days. And on the 7th morning, something happens that he can barely put into words. His sense of being a separate person just dissolves. There's still awareness, but nobody there to own it. Still breathing, but nobody doing the breathing. Just this vast, open emptiness where everything rises and falls endlessly like waves, and no edge to any of it. And when he comes back to normal, he's crying, because it felt like dying and being born in the exact same instant. He turns to the monk and asks, "Was that it? Was that liberation? Was that Moksh?" And the monk says, "No, that was just a glimpse of it, a door cracking open for a second. You got a taste. Now comes the hard part, learning to actually live like that every day with your eyes open." A year later, the monk tells him it's time. "Your path goes somewhere else now. You're ready to teach." Vasu panics, "I'm not ready." But the monk won't hear it. And as they say goodbye like a father and a son, he leaves Vasu with one last piece of advice. And it's a good one. He says, "Teach from the things that hurt you, not the things you're proud of. People trust that more." So Vasu goes off alone, finds a quiet valley, and builds a single hut with his own 2 hands. And somehow word gets out. People start showing up. A rich kid who's sick of counting money, a widow trying to make sense of losing everything. And then a young man named Suzuma arrives, fierce, hungry, and honestly he reminds Vasu of himself all those years ago, standing in that village with a question he couldn't get rid of. Suzuma says, "I want to understand why we suffer. I want to know if freedom is actually real." And the years roll on. Vasu grows old, his hair goes white, his body gets frail, but his understanding just keeps getting deeper. Until at 63, he feels the end coming. And he decides to meet it on his own terms. He sits under a great tree and he stops eating, and for 35 days he just meditates. His body wastes away to almost nothing, but everyone who sat with him said he seemed more there than ever. And on the final night, with young Suzuma sitting right beside him, he gives his last teaching. He says, "Remember this, Suzuma. The path is clear for anyone with a pure heart. Do good, live with kindness, meditate, trust that your actions come back to you, and let go of what you're holding on to. Freedom isn't a fantasy. It's where every soul is headed as long as it walks the right path. Now carry this forward." And then he smiles, closes his eyes, and lets go. His last breath isn't a struggle. It's a release, like finally putting down something heavy he'd carried his whole life. And that's the end of Vasu. Except it isn't. Because far away, back in that little village he left behind, there's an old woman named Rohini. And every single evening for 63 years, she has lit a lamp for the husband who walked out into the dark and never came back. And their son, Dhruva, he's grown now, got kids of his own, and he's carrying something inside him he doesn't even understand yet. Because Vasu's story wasn't actually finished when he died. And neither is this one. So let me leave you with the question I can't stop thinking about. Vasu chose his own search over his little boy begging him to stay. Was that a beautiful act of letting go? Or was it just abandoning his family and calling it enlightenment? And be honest with yourself. If you knew the way Vasu knew that this life was only one of thousands, would you have stayed? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know where you land on this one. And if this story stayed with you, the full book's on Amazon right now. Paperback, hardcover, and Kindle. Links in the description. Chapter 2 picks up somewhere you won't expect. I'll see you there.